Hi YouTube, it's Leslie from Fresh Lemps. So if you've seen my latest hair video, it was me basically saying that I have now completed my transition to Texlaxed, and I get quite a lot of questions on how I did my transition, what I was doing to my hair whilst I was transitioning. So this video is for you that want to transition to Texlaxed but you're not completely sure what to do with your hair. So the first tip that I would give is to be sure that you actually want to transition to Texlaxed, and also to know your method of Texlaxing. And I know that sounds really obvious, but I didn't have my whole method and stuff set when I actually started transitioning. I actually Texlaxed by accident in 2011, and I absolutely hated the texture when I first Texlaxed. So a couple of times after I'd done it by mistake, I kept going over it with a relaxer, and this is literally the worst thing you can do. And to get to that point where you know exactly what Texlax texture you want and how to get it, takes practice. You have to experiment, and I would suggest doing that on like little pieces of your hair. You know, just practice applying the relaxer and leaving it on for the kind of right amount of time. Or if you don't want to do it on your hair, do it on shed hairs that are in your comb, and that's the best thing for getting your technique down before you start doing it on your head and then you're kind of stuck with it. Okay, so moisture is the key to preventing breakage when you're transitioning, because the differences in your textures might be, really stark and really different. The more moisturised you keep it, the less you're going to get breakage between the two textures, because this is the point that's going to be the weakest. And the ways you can moisturise is to get a daily moisturiser. It could be a leave-in conditioner, it could be a cream, it could be something that's milky. Whatever works for you is fine. And also make sure that you're conditioning and deep conditioning your hair. Stay away from stripping shampoos. Co-wash occasionally to get rid of build-up, and then use a conditioner or a deep conditioner as you feel is necessary. I use a deep conditioner every single wash just because that's what works for me. But yeah, just as long as you're adding that moisture and you're keeping your hair hydrated, then that's going to be really good. The third tip would to be add strength where needed. And this is a tricky one because when you use chemicals, your hair becomes weakened, usually because the chemicals have an impact on the amount of protein that's in your hair. Be mindful that your hair will need protein, but at the same time try and balance it with moisture. So when I first started looking after my hair, I went overkill on the protein and I caused a lot of damage. The fourth tip is to eliminate tangles, and this is probably the hardest one for me because I do not detangle regularly. Eliminate your tangles as much as possible, because if you don't do that, you'll get so much matting and so much breakage, and the last thing you want is matting, because then you'll just have to cut it out. The fifth tip is protective styling, and I'm like the queen of buns. Like, I've got one now. This is how I pretty much always style my hair. Obviously, if you don't like buns, you can do ponytails, you can do updos, you can do braids, you can do twists, you can do anything that keeps your hair from, say, touching your shoulders or stops you like fiddling with it or playing with it too much. Things that are low manipulation are going to be key for you whilst you're transitioning, because it's whilst you're styling that you're going to cause a lot of breakage. I actually experimented a lot with wigs at the beginning of this year. I think it was about 2 months solid where I completely wore wigs, and it was really good for my hair. So I'm going to dip in and out of that just to keep my hair in good condition. But yeah, obviously whatever protective style that you choose is up to you, as long as it's not going to damage your hair. My sixth tip is to go heat free, and that's kind of following on from the last point, because the less you style your hair with heat, the better it's going to be, not only for your hair, but for you. By not using heat, you're forcing yourself to deal with your hair as it is. It made me realise what my options were, and I think if you're relying on heat a lot, you have to question why you want to do this journey to Texlaxed, or why you want to transition. Because if you like your hair straight, then just keep it straight. And I'm talking like direct heat, so using straighteners or flat irons, using like tongs or curlers, wands, that sort of thing. I think indirect heat is okay in moderation. So like if you're going to use a hooded dryer, I don't really see the issue in that, but that's really down to personal preference and how damaged your hair is. If your hair is really damaged, do not use heat. And so the 7th tip is to be careful with chemicals. So I made a decision last year, well actually it wasn't last year, it was more the beginning of the year, I decided I'm not going to relax my hair for as long as possible, and just so I can see exactly where my natural hair ends and my Texlaxed hair starts. Not only that, but because my Texlaxed transition wasn't very straightforward and I did it kind of, I started Texlaxing very differently in the beginning. I obviously have a lot of different textures, so I needed to kind of just see what I was working with. So that's pretty much why I stretched my relaxer as far as possible. But you don't have to do that, it's really up to you. But I would say that just bear in mind that every time you put a relaxer on your hair, it's gonna weaken your hair in some way. When you get that runoff, when you're rinsing the relaxer out, it's working on your strands. I just think the less you can use a relaxer, the better. Tip number 8 is to trim, and this is probably the scariest word if you're trying a long-term transition, because the whole idea is that you keep your hair long and you don't kind of lose that length instantly. It's not like an instant shock when you big chop. I really wanted to hold out so that I had a lot of length to work with, but in reality I got really sick of my ends, and every time I trimmed them I was just so much happier. Yeah, it's up to you about trimming, but that it made my life easier. So number 9 is to stay positive and be patient. I know this is kind of like a cliche thing to say with hair tips, but I genuinely believe that if you are patient with your hair and you don't get frustrated, then you will start to see changes. And then my last and final tip is products versus technique. And this is a bit of a funny one because I am a massive product junkie. I love trying new products. I will even if I find something I love, I'll try something similar. But for me, your technique is far more important than what specific products you're using. So just bear that in mind. Don't get bogged down with loads of stuff that other people are using. So I hope this video was helpful for some of you that had some questions about how I transitioned. If you have any questions, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos, and I'll see you in a new video soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!